Well, the craziness of the draft and most of free agency, you can say, is over. And now we look forward to Independence Day. Happy almost Independence Day, everybody. Come on in. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Joining me, as always, is Brit. How's it going, Brit?
It is going.
Oh, good. You got any 4th of July plans?
I am home. Not really, actually, and I'm not mad about it. So
Just casual.
nothing
Sometimes
too
those are
big. Yeah.
the best ones to have, is just where you don't really have anything, just relax,
Yeah.
maybe be with family. Good
Yep.
stuff. Good
Eat.
deal. I'm kind of right there with you. We usually go over to my parents' house and just watch fireworks, play some games, hang out around the fire pit. It's great stuff. So we're pretty excited for that.
A lot of our fireworks shows are. I don't even know if our city's going to be doing one because it's been so dry here. So we'll see.
That's true. That could be a thing. Yeah, you never know. And with fireworks, we usually are kind of. It feels like we're usually like a pre-show to. We have a neighbor that's kind of across the street that they go and get the big stuff, man. So
We're
it's like
surrounded by rednecks, so
that's pretty much it. So I'm not gonna rat them out, but they get fireworks that shouldn't be here. I'll just say that.
It's always nice to have somebody else willing to pay for it because I'm simply
exactly.
Yep. Bless them.
It's good stuff. But the good news is that we have some stuff to discuss. The bad news is now we're really gonna kind of, after this episode, enter the down years, or excuse me, the down months of hockey. So we're gonna get through this and be happy about it, and then next week we'll see what comes up. So before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe, follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook, or at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Okay, Britt. So, first of all, lovely hoodie.
Thanks. I hijacked it from my dad, and now I've just kind of.
We should have coordinated. I have the Rockies City Edition, that same exact one, but the jersey. Oh. We were both at that game. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, that jersey. Yeah, should wear that. Okay, but we're not talking about the Rockies. We're talking about the Avalanche, and a couple of things did happen.
Sorry about my lights. Aggressive.
That's all right. So last week we were talking about the draft and how we didn't think a lot would happen unless they made some random move right before the draft, which they did.
I don't know if it could have been any more random than, like always, I say we can plan and guess and plan and guess, and we're never right. We are never even close to being right. Never in the same world as what they're doing.
Although I will say on this one, I do feel like half Nostradamus, because the last thing I said was, unless you're moving Charlie Coyle, I don't see anything happening. Well, Britt, the Avalanche have traded Charlie Coyle in addition to Miles Wood to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a string of picks.
Yeah, it's wild how vast the opinions are apart between that being a win and a loss, as everybody seems to be perceiving it different. But I think to get rid of Miles Wood's contract, that was about as swiftly and as, not containing anything as it could have gone. But
yeah,
how did you take it? Did you take it as a positive?
It was, the Miles Wood portion for sure came as a surprise. I wasn't necessarily thinking he was going to leave, but it's an understandable move where I'm not totally hurt by it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Where you understand the logistics behind it, though there seems to be a lot of new problems that has caused. Yeah, you freed up, let's see, what would have been $7.5 million in cap space, which all of a sudden, voila, you had it.
Does your opinion change now that we've had a, lack of movement during free agency? Does it
Well,
feel like maybe Charlie
let me
Coyle?
tell you what the roster looks like with those two gone, and in addition to the Parker Kelly extension, which that was the second piece of news, was the Parker Kelly extension, which I quite enjoy, honestly. I didn't think it was
Really?
anything that broke the bank. It was a nice little term, so
I
I'm
think
pretty
that
thrilled
one
with that.
single shift that he had like earned that extension entirely. There was one shift where he blocked like 3 shots within.
Yeah, like that you knew something was up.
It sold it.
Um,
It sold the
I
Avs on
think
his.
it sold a lot, given that he would go and do anything, and he had actually a pretty all right season offensively as well. So
Yeah.
for third, fourth line, it's okay, and he can only get better. That's the good thing. So for those of you who also weren't aware, Parker Kelly did sign a 4-year extension with the Avalanche with an AAV of $1.7 million. So nothing that breaks the bank. You still have a lot of money in cap, which we'll get to that in a second. But, Britt, going back to the topic, let me tell you what the lines look like with Miles Wood and Charlie Coyle out and with Parker Kelly in. The top 6 is pretty standard. That's not going to change, I don't think. With McKinnon, Natchez, and Lehkonen, your top line, and Landeskog, Nelson, and Nichushkin, your second line. That's great. Right? Like that line in and of itself, or those two lines in and of themselves, are great. There's nothing, no notes, basically. Here's where things get interesting. Now, you have to keep in mind, Logan O'Connor got surgery and he's out for 6 months. Well, now from this point, I think you're looking at like 5, 4, something like that. He's going to miss until about Christmas time. So your third line is Parker Kelly, Ross Colton, Jack Drury. That's a very different line than it would have been, assuming you didn't trade Miles Wood and assuming Logan O'Connor didn't have surgery. The Roaring 20s line, as they called it last season. Mm-hmm. This is where I really need to see, particularly Jack Drury and Parker Kelly, step up, because you still have a year left on I keep saying Chris Drury, don't I? I mean Jack Drury. I apologize. Chris Drury. Ali somewhere is fuming mad that I even say his name. But that third line, that third line is going to be very difficult to manage, in my opinion. Not the fact that they're not capable, Britt. I'm talking about the fact that this third line, you compare that to what you had 4 seasons ago now, soon to be 4 seasons ago, in your Stanley Cup winning roster, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
I think.
And that's what you look at the Panthers, their third line was probably the key factor in them it was the key difference in them overcoming teams that were just about as good, but that third line was the difference. I believe.
Yeah. And in a race where you're looking to make depth a thing, because obviously the deepest teams usually are the ones that go the farthest in the playoffs. And this is fine.
Riddled team.
That's also true. This is fine, assuming that you can continue to extract that same type of production and more so from Drury and Kelly. Colton, we know can happen. It just needs to happen.
I am curious. With him having a groin injury this year, I just can't see them going into the year banking on Ross Colton, especially if they anticipated him being the third line center, because he might be better off playing with some higher end wingers, not having to. Just because he's not originally a center, that's not his strong. I think that he's stronger at wing, but it just feels really dangerous to have sold so much and go all in and then rely on him at third line center when groin injuries, he could be out off and on for the next 5 years. It's just never.
Yep. And at a $4 million cap hit, that's pricey. Yep. Especially if you're getting only a center,
may as well.
Especially if you're only getting 3/4 of a player, effectively. So that third line is going to be very interesting. What's also going to be interesting is the line right after that, Brit. According to Puckpedia, the fourth line consists of, get ready for this, Ty Fellhaber, Ivan, and Nikita Prishchapov. Now, Ivan, and to an extent Prishchapov, I think could be a pretty okay fourth line, assuming they are NHL ready, like to stay type of ready.
Well, and I just don't. Have you heard any discuss? Kiviranta hasn't signed anywhere, has he?
You haven't heard anything about Kiviranta, which you'd think so that should be done.
Wonder if the amount that we're willing to pay him is raising quickly. And
it's got to be.
Who knows what plans they have that they may not feel the urgency that we do, but now with they were supposedly very deep in on the Ehlers sweepstakes, as some may call it. I don't really feel it's that compelling to use the word sweepstakes, but that should put in motion something that would indicate
some type of trade or kind of kickstart some kind of secondary wave of moves. Fellhaber, again, there's nothing against him, but he's just not proven. That's the only concern that I have. Is
I would think
I
would like to see Brindley have a chance before that.
Potentially.
And they might run through, and that fourth line might be just a test. We might be testing a lot of dudes. You've got Taylor McCarr, who I don't think is ready. I want him to be ready desperately.
Oh, that'd be great.
We've got Taylor McCarr, Brindley, Olausen does still exist.
And TJ Tynan as well.
Yep.
Yeah. The hardest part about this, though, the name that you won't find in this list anymore is Chris Wagner, who signed elsewhere.
That's going to be tough. I didn't see that.
Yep, because he has time in the NHL, and he did a pretty okay job in those times that he had, where I was like, hey, if he plays this way, he can continue to just play himself right into the fourth line permanently and be okay. I feel that way with Ivan. I feel like he'll be probably a staple in a fourth line. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, especially because
he has shown those signs of promise. Say that again.
Ivan seems to be on Bednar's more trustworthy than not list.
So it's really the question of, like I said, Prishchapov, which he shows promise, but he hasn't proven that promise. And Fellhaber just hasn't done that yet.
We traded to the Sharks. Oh my gosh. I keep wanting to say Kuzmenko. That's what I say for every Russian name. Kovalev? Oh my God.
You're talking about Nikolai Kovalenko.
Yeah, he's a free agent. Do you suppose that might be
It could be. It could be, because he was the guy that, obviously came as part of the Mackenzie Blackwood trade. Mm-hmm. There's maybe a way that we get him back. That would be a good way to shore up fourth line.
Felt like we maybe gave up on him a little quick, too.
Could you imagine if you have Ivan, Nikita Prishchapov, and Nikolai Kovalenko, just this Russian kid fourth line, and they just go nuts? That would just be that'd be phenomenal.
Well, and then you've got Brent Burns, who was once upon a time not a defenseman, so maybe that's part of the plan too. We sure leaned on that with.
All right, so I guess let's go to that piece of news next. This one, Brit, came out of left field, and holy crap, am I excited!
It was just so Avalanche.
This I don't know how I didn't put these two together going like, oh my gosh, this would be just great. Because last week, Britt, we talked about the fact that you had your top pairing, or your top four, I should say. There was nothing wrong with it, right?
Yeah.
Taves Makar, Gerard Manson, that's great. We did get Sam Malinsky signed to a 1-year extension at $1.4 million. So at least you have him for a year. But then you had Keaton Middleton floating around, which, again, Keaton Middleton is okay. I've seen this play. It's safe. He doesn't have that destructiveness kind of like Curtis McDermott did. But out of nowhere, the Avalanche go and sign veteran and very, very old veteran Brent Burns to a 1-year, $1 million contract with incentives depending on number of games played, if I'm not mistaken. That shores up your your third pairing defensively. Now, keep in mind, Brent Burns being 40 is an absolute Iron Man. Okay,
He's at
he's
several years without missing
I
a game.
think he's carrying about 3 or 4 years having not missed a single
Yeah.
game. That's why we've titled this show Mile High Iron Man. The
Yeah.
only real question, Britt, obviously is not his play. Apparently, he's shown no signs of showing or slowing down. Considering back on Carolina for those few years, he was top pairing defenseman with Jacob Slavin.
Yeah.
So it's
And it
not going to
sounds
be a
like
question of his play.
he hit a cliff as far as like last year. I believe he hit only like 29 points, but that's not going to be something that we're relying on him for.
Oh no,
we don't.
and that's
the
just
main
it. Is
thing with
you're
him is
setting
he's a
him
penalty killing machine, which is a huge
exactly.
asset. He's 6'5", like
That's going to be great.
240. I mean, he takes up half
Yep.
the ice. So if we can ask a lot less minutes out of him, he was playing over 23 minutes on average a game.
He was
you
a
got to
lot of
assume that
minutes last year.
yeah, if we're only needing 15 from him, ideally he can give a lot stronger 15 than 20, 20 plus.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, this signing it's not this all of a sudden, holy crap, this is all, this changes the trajectory of the team. No, the trajectory of the team's still going to be at what it is. This just adds to that push in a good way because
replacing a lot of personality that I think it's losing. Miles Wood is we've lost quite a bit of personality, and frankly, when we were considering Ehlers coming to the team, thinking about him and Nelson being two of the more prominent names on the team, felt like a pretty dry locker room, as both of them are not the most particularly interesting or motivating type people. So I think Brent Burns, everywhere he goes, he is absolutely worshipped in the locker room by the fans.
100%.
Off the ice, he's one of those assets that I think that we've kind of lost too many of lately.
Exactly. And he can be bumped up. And I mean, that Jared Bednar does these things where he'll just randomly rotate lines. So one of these games, he could just be playing top pairing and be with Makar, and they go on a double hat trick scoring spree and everything's great. But he can slot anywhere, though. Again, I think for him that would just be like a little breeze walk if you set him on that third pairing with Malinsky, who's up and coming, can teach him well. I think it's a great signing all the way around, on ice, off ice, merchandise, no merchandise.
Next year he's got $1 million like salary, with $3 million in signing bonuses that are mostly I think they're mostly games played. And it's essentially turning into deferred salary because it can be pushed into next year's cap space. And next year we have like over $30 million of cap space opening up. So it's a lot more free next year.
Yep. So
okay, I have to ask you this. Foodie when unrestricted, not tendered. Are we done with him?
For who, sorry?
Jean-Luc Foodie?
Are we? I didn't hear any word about him.
It's because he went free agent. Oh my gosh, where is he now?
He might be.
There's no way we could just give up on him, right? And it looks like Ludwig did too, because I wanted to look and see what was going on with him. Became unrestricted free agent, not tendered a qualifying offer for Foodie and Ludwig. Doesn't that just
wow. Well, and that brings up a good point, Britt, is you look at the roster that I just named, this was the bet that the Avalanche that we decided to make was we're going after veteran experience rather than farming up players.
Yeah, it does.
And this is kind of one of those tight spaces that you've backed yourself into, is all the high yielding fruits, aka the big free agents, the sexy names, they're being plucked off one by one. You're not going to have a lot left.
And there was a very small pool of guys that fit what we needed. The gap between the top and the bottom was very wide and it seemed like the ones that were available were very niche players that weren't going to satisfy the needs that we had.
Exactly. So Okay, so this now begs the last question. Are the Avalanche done? Is this the roster you're going to see on opening day?
No. I think that the biggest two names that are up in the air are Natchez and Colton. But it's hard to imagine Natchez being traded or leaving without bringing in a big name. And at this point, with what's left on the market, it would have to be another like bombshell out of left field, Sidney Crosby, something that's totally unexpected because there's just none left. Generally, you have one of them holding out. And who is the top free agent left? NHL top free.
That would be Jack Roslovic, according to what I have on my little spreadsheet.
And what does that do for you?
It gets you Jack Roslovic. That's about it.
And see, I thought and this is behind because Mikael Granlund and Brock Besser are both signed. So, I mean, it's going to be plucking someone that appear to be on the table,
And that's just it. You might have to strike a hot deal all of a sudden with a team. And then that was another thing that I wanted to bring up was a lot of people were waiting until Nikolai Ehlers made his signing, which obviously he picked the Hurricanes, which that was a choice. But
does it not totally suit him though? Just like a boring dude for a boring team.
I don't know. I wanted him to go. There were 31 other teams I would have been okay with, but he picked the one that I was not. But it is what it is.
It's a match made in heaven.
I feel like now, probably in the next week or so, there's going to be a lot of trades made.
And that will propel more trades because you'll see.
Which I believe, yep, you're exactly right. So I'm on that same board as you. As no, I don't think this is the final opening day roster that you will see. I'm almost going to guarantee you that you'll probably have 3 new players by the end of this. Hopefully, Kiviranta is one of them.
Where do you sit on Kevin Weeks' comments during the draft about Crosby? It
felt like smoke that was just being blown at this point. Like maybe he got it from someone and it went nowhere, but it definitely got my interest where I was like, that can't be right.
Oh God. In a draft that was almost painful, completely ready to tune out.
Yeah.
It fully engaged me again.
No kidding.
And maybe that's why he did it. Maybe he was the sacrificial lamb. I don't know. But do you think that that's on the table? Do you think that he is prepared to offer up his legacy of being a lifer in order to get a haul for the Penguins? But what do we have to offer for the Penguins to start a rebuild? Unless we trade a couple first
that's picks. Just it though, is I don't see him.
We don't really have prospects that line up with their.
I just don't see him ever leaving Pittsburgh. That's the hardest part, because it's definitely not going to be on his own volition. That's for sure. It's going to be an organization decision
through Malkin's contract.
And that's going to be it, because Rust is he might go. Yeah, Malkin's going to retire. So yeah, I can definitely see why the temptation would be there, but I just don't see that in Crosby's repertoire to go and just say, well, it's all blown up, all these years. I just don't see it.
I only see him doing it for the sake of the Penguins' future. And I just don't, when I get to where, what do we have to offer to set them up for a future in terms of assets?
As long as you have $8.7 million, that's all you need to offer, apparently. So,
but, see, and that's why I think he wouldn't. I think he would only go for it if we had for picks, like a long-term assets.
Yeah,
so,
potentially.
And maybe that's what we would get for Natchez. Should we? But it's even if we got Crosby, it doesn't seem like that makes Natchez completely disposable.
Yeah. So I think Natchez, I think you get an extension done with him. I mean, look, the cap.
I have a lot more faith in Natchez than a lot of the.
Oh yeah, and like I said, it's the runaround way of getting a second Mikko Rantanen just at a cheaper time. That the cap is going up another $9 to $10 million. If he holds on for just this last season of his contract and we get an extension by the time the trade deadline rolls around for the in-season trade deadline, I think it's going to be fine. Like I'm not concerned, and you're going to get an entire year now with Marty Natchez. Like imagine this.
Yeah, and I don't think that he's unhappy in Colorado. I just don't see a better fit for him beyond playing with the Colorado system. I mean,
you betcha.
The speed and the style is perfectly catered to
him. And again, I'll throw in this reminder. You have Nichushkin and Landeskog starting the season. Like Landeskog
after my other question.
Hiatus,
do you see Nichushkin as possibly a trade asset?
Again, no one's off the table. Everyone's still on the table. So potentially, but again, it's going to have to be the perfect deal. Right. And with him going in year 4 of 8. Yeah, it's one of those I'd maybe kick that rock down the road another 3 years, So this year, no, to be honest. But again, a perfect deal comes along and you have to benefit from it. And Nichushkin's the casualty. I just don't think it's going to happen. But again, anything can happen. So, So additionally from that now, obviously your goaltenders of Blackwood and Wedgwood, you're going to have a full year of those two starting. That's great.
Which makes it a lot more palatable to go into the year with maybe not a fully solidified bottom 6.
That's right.
Yep, because that's where they can pick up the pieces where they may struggle.
That's right. So where it sits is okay. It's just you have now some cap space. It would be really nice if you could do something with it. If I'm not mistaken, you have I just had the number here. You have a little over $4 million.
Yeah.
I feel like that could get you at least Joel Kiviranta, and that would make me feel better. But I feel like you could go get a couple guys at least, and then make a trade for a third or something. Yeah. So we'll just have to kind of keep playing it by ear. Obviously, it's a long off season. We'll just have to see what happens. But Brit, I wanted to go into some other key free agent signings that happened during this free agency period, and kind of also get your thoughts on the draft itself. I guess maybe we'll talk about that first, just because it's a quick little go-to. What did you think of the decentralized draft where they get the kid, he'd shake hands with the commissioner, take a picture, go into this little side room where you then have a virtual hello, welcome to the team with from the GM and their posse with bad internet, and then they just kind of go and do their other interviews. What did you think of this draft
I thought
format?
It was embarrassing, and you almost have to wonder if it was what's the word I'm looking for? If Gary Bettman did it on purpose, if he sabotaged it because he was clearly feeling very told you so when he made sure everyone knew that it was voted on by the GMs to decentralize the draft. And then I was just listening to Agent Provocateur, and Alan Walsh said that he had every single GM all poopy pants with him because they didn't have access to one another to make discussions, and essentially they couldn't wheel and deal the way that they needed to or wanted to. So they complained about it, even though it was like a very overwhelming majority vote to decentralize the draft. So I'd imagine it will not be the same next year. They've pretty much already established that, but it took so long, and it was just so cringy. The Zoom thing, and I heard that if you were there, it was even more cringy because you're there watching, and basically the kid gets drafted, and then they go to a room that the people that are attending the draft
can't see.
Yeah, they can't see it.
Oh, it's so weird.
They have like this awful. And did nobody consider how not good most NHL people are on camera? It was so embarrassing. So many of them were like robotical and just awkward, and it was just Everything about it was cool.
I 100% agree with you, Britt. I think it was an absolute mistake doing a decentralized draft, and I really hope that never happens again.
Yeah.
So it just
people thought
the
we're going to
whole
go live for the whole draft because it was supposed to be faster, and it ended up being over 5 hours. It took like 35 minutes.
So long for one round, and it was like the only big
draft that's pretty underwhelming this year already. It was painful. I think I texted you at like pick 26 and said, we're ready to check out. We're gonna head out here.
Yep, it was rough. It was really rough. So anyway, just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Okay, so let's jump back to free agency real fast here. And let's take a look at some teams, just some teams around the league that I feel have made themselves more whole and more complete as a team, given their free agency signings and what it could mean when it comes to the Avalanche. The first and obvious one is Mitch Marner. Before the trade deadline or before the free agency window opens, pitches a deal to Vegas in which a sign and trade occurs, and he will go to Vegas wearing number 93, his old junior's number, in exchange for Nick Raw. This one, again, it's not surprising. They're the sexy team with the destination town. They somehow have the money to do this. It doesn't come as a shock, unfortunately. I personally thought Anaheim was gearing up to make him the offer of a lifetime, and he settles for $12 million when I thought for sure he was going to command 13.5.
I think that he just couldn't. It sounds like from the beginning of this year, he just came to the understanding that he could not do it in Toronto anymore. And I think it crushed him. I think he's a very sensitive dude. And
oh, sure.
I think that they really did drive him out of there. I don't know. It's sad to me that he's literally the epitome of the hometown Toronto boy. I mean, he's truly a magical hockey player at his
100%.
peak. He's obviously struggled to perform in the playoffs. That's been noted over and over again, but I think there's a good chance that he may go off into like God status playing.
I think you might be right, Britt.
I just think that the mental space that he's going to find there is going to give him the ability to play consistently.
I will say these two pieces here, and then I'll leave this Marner situation be. When it comes to Vegas, they are the team, the roster itself. I actually very much like. I like Jack Eichel. I like Mark Stone, Aiden Hill. You name it. They're a great roster. What I don't like is the first sign of potential buckling, and you are gone when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. We are there to win. If you show any signs of
there's already talks about Jack Eichel, like he might be out in the next.
Exactly. And it is a heartless organization over there where it's like they are there for one purpose and one purpose only. And if you're a horse that shows a little bit of a limp, they're going to grab the shotgun.
Frankly, it surprised me that they didn't consider moving Mark Stone if it were an option.
I still am on the board that hopefully Tomas Hertl gets dealt to Utah, and I'm happy again.
I was wondering if
hope it happens.
I think that they still have to clear cap prior to the season starting.
They do, although I don't believe Petrangelo's.
How did you feel about the wording on his statement? Petrangelo saying that hockey has taken a toll on his body, which blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
He did not say retirement or out for the year. So it sure seemed like they were leaving that door open for him to just be ready, like right when the playoffs start. No,
Potentially, but I took it as like he's done in his career. Forever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which I think is the most likely. I don't see Petrangelo as being that kind of a person. Although I could see
the kind of pressure he felt from the team.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It felt like Vegas kind of made the wording that way.
Yeah. Either retire now or you're going to be a shark.
Exactly. So the second thing I will say on the Mitch Marner situation is if you're Toronto, you pinned every last failure on him.
He has been
because and the thing is they're not wrong in the sense that he is a he's the regular season hero. He'll get over 100 points, score odd number goals, like he'll be wonderful. And then come playoffs, that just goes away.
Playoff numbers are truly like
they're pretty tragic.
Yeah.
What I will say to that though is it's not one guy who wins you a playoff series. You do not rest your entire hopes and dreams on one player. There were several other players that could have gone and scored just that one extra goal at that one extra time, or the goalie making that one save that led in the goal, and you're on to another series. Yep. It's a team effort sport, and from what the toxic side of Toronto fans, because I know there's toxicity everywhere, the toxic side of Toronto does not seem to grasp that this is a 6 players on the ice at a time to go and win a game.
Well,
and so for them to pin everything on Mitch Marner is very unfair, I think.
Yeah, and the negativity has only made it more cyclical. It has driven, I think, him to mentally stunting himself in his game because he is always the one to blame. It's amazing how a 100+ point player can be the bane of their fans' existence.
So that's all I will say on that. You can agree with me. You can disagree with me. You can love me for saying that. You can hate me for saying that.
You know, my hate for Vegas has really, I just don't mind them. There was a period where I absolutely couldn't even stomach their logos. And at this point, I just don't really hate them. Don't hate Eichel. And I kind of don't hate, as long as they just lose to us last, I don't hate.
There you go.
The Mitch Marner revenge tour with Vegas.
There you go. Okay. Next team I wanted to talk about was the Florida Panthers, who get the re-signing hat trick. And managing to bring back the entire squad of Sam Bennett, Brad Marchand, and Aaron Ekblad.
Seriously,
I gotta tell you, Bill Zito's
the right thing comes up every single time. The exact piece that you needed to fill an exact hole, piece after piece, is the perfect piece. And I just
it's incredible that
they signed. It came down that Ekblad was going to be the odd man out. That this is just business, and they're going to have to give up their captain to keep Marchand. And then they came out that they signed him. They kept all of them. They
got all 3 when I thought for certain only 1 and 2 at the most would resign.
Yeah,
they get all of them, and they all took rather team-friendly deals. Aaron Ekblad taking a $6.1 million cap hit for 8 years. Sam Bennett got the most at 8, which that makes sense.
Because it's a tax-free state. I will not, and I refuse to believe, especially when you consider how many years they were not good. The tax-free states have been not good.
And no one said a word.
And the tax-free states, you're only having a tax-free paycheck for the games that are played in tax-free states.
Yeah, so really half of the season.
Exactly.
So
but they are all so freaking bought in to what they're doing, and it's so obvious by their
the team chemistry is through the roof. Bill Zito has done a really phenomenal job with that organization.
And they knew that those guys were integral pieces to that, that mentality. I mean, it's scary to think what they're going to do with those guys and a healthy Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk was a shell of himself through much of the playoffs. Like we talked about before, there were rarely a game that the Panthers played where all of their stars showed up because most of them were battling things. Barkov was nearly non-existent. His hand was like sliced open. He had a super messed up hand. So the thought of them coming back next year healthy is horrifying.
Yeah, it's going to be really scary.
And they're not old. They're other than Marchand, but Marchand is like a little goblin that just doesn't. Time is irrelevant.
Much. That's right. And the last team I want to talk about, even though there wasn't like a lot, not a big wow factor, but they've all of a sudden gotten a lot better because of an RFA sign and trade that they got, was the Utah Mammoth.
Mhm.
This is, again, and it's in your division. It only makes things harder because they
The
looked at
Central
depth
Division
pieces.
and the Western Conference as a whole, everything good went to the Central Division and the Western
That's
Conference.
right.
It's like the East
The,
Coast
the
is
only
nothing.
the only teams that haven't done a thing were Chicago and, to a lesser extent, Winnipeg, from losing Nikolai Ehlers.
Yeah.
So
But they
the
signed
reason
Jonathan
though
Toews.
that's also true. The reason though that I'm picking Utah here is because they were able to do what the Avalanche could not, and I'm worried that that's going to come back and bite Colorado. They went out and they needed a backup goaltender, so they went out and got recent Stanley Cup champion, though he was a backup goaltender, in Vitek Vanacek.
Yeah,
Who,
but he
if they resurrect his career,
yeah,
you got a
comes
really
off
difficult tandem.
a locker room that is thriving, and he's going to bring that to them, and that's, we know,
and they are a very
team. Brought us.
Exactly, and they're very focused. Like, the team is a brotherhood for them in the Mammoth organization. So they also go and bring in Nate Schmidt, also of the Florida Panthers, having that Stanley Cup prestige to him and pedigree, I should say. And they go and get the piece that I was really low-key rooting for the Avalanche to go and get in Brandon Tanev.
Yeah.
And Utah goes and gets him. Yeah. They have filled out their roster rather nicely. Yeah. You mix that with the fact that they go and get JJ Peterka, who has outrageous types of promise.
Robbed.
And you mix that in the fact that they still have $11 million in cap space. And that's not even extending Logan Cooley yet or anything to that extent. It just, they did what I was really hoping Colorado could accomplish.
It's hard to see the Wild, the Blues, I mean, any of the middling teams performing better than them. If these pieces come together correctly, they could very well be a top 4 team in the division. I believe that.
And that's exactly Bill Armstrong's MO with the Mammoth is,
and they're built young.
He wants to get the core that's good and that they're young, so they stay good for years. So if they sneak into the playoffs this year, Brit, they're probably not leaving for the next decade.
Everything is every accomplishment, starting with getting a wild card spot, making the playoffs, is a win for them. So exactly. I mean, the ladder that they have to climb it's scary. I mean, it's truly scary, even for the Avalanche. I mean,
that's right. And I bring them up particularly because they were on the outs of the Central Division looking in. But now, if you're not careful, if injuries plague you, if anything like that happens, and this doesn't go just for the Avs,
feel a lot more important.
This doesn't go just for the Avs too. This goes for Winnipeg, Dallas, any of those teams that did squeak in. That could mean now that Utah has the upper hand when it comes to future play. Yeah. And like I said, the reason I bring them up is because they were able to do what I wanted the Avalanche to do. Cap, regardless of cap, they went and shored up every single line. Their fourth line consists of Brandon Tanev, Kevin Stenlund, and Liam O'Brien.
And Tanev is a presence on the ice. I mean,
and that's the thing, and that's fourth line.
Yeah,
that's fourth line. Like that's just crazy to me.
The epitome of just work and laying it all out there. I mean, he's going to show these guys what it's like to be hungry. What hungry
exactly. So I am, and I don't say this just because obviously home state, they're just up the road. I don't say that for just nothing. They have depth now. They have scoring ability when they got JJ Peterka. Their top 6 can all easily reach 60 points.
And they have good vibes to ride on. I mean, they're still a brand new team with a hungry fan base, and I mean they're in such a good place emotionally with the fan base, and
Yep.
they when you think about the number of players that came from the Coyotes organization that had years of losing and being shit on, they are so revived and ready to.
They're a different team. It's incredible. The last team, Britt, that I want to bring up just very quickly before we kind of leave here is the LA Kings.
I have one team that I want to bring up too.
Okay, I'll tell this one real fast. It does start with a joke, and then I'll actually get into the real bit of it.
The Kings, I'm guessing, are not going to be the winners.
The Kings are going to the Stanley Cup final, Britt.
God,
They're just not going to win. The Kings get Corey Perry, but they also make a slew of signings in Cody Ceci, which I think they overpaid.
$4 million?
I think they overpaid for. They also went and got they kept Andre, or wow, what am I saying? Andre Kuzmenko, and they get Joel Armia and Anton Forsberg, all just boom, 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 right in a row.
Okay, yeah.
And does that make the roster change enough that they can get over that first round hump and beat inevitably the Edmonton Oilers?
I mean, I felt like they needed scoring, and instead they got older. And I don't know. The Cody Ceci thing, man, he must just be really, really lovable amongst GMs because he has consistently gotten overpaid for much of the last 5 years. He is a very likable player, a fan-worthy player off the ice, but they're paying Kuzmenko and Cody Ceci almost the same amount. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was kind of baffling. To me, they're coming out worse in the end. I don't know.
So just maybe to keep an eye on. It's hard to say, but I'm leaning toward yes. I think that means that pushes them into the second round. They did, but again, Cody Ceci, it is an overpay. They're taking a big risk, but I have seen Ceci at his best before.
Right. And
and it could very much pay dividends, assuming he can keep that up, which we just haven't seen.
The Corey Perry thing is I don't feel like, I don't know.
So I wanted to bring that team up as well.
Bring to them what he has brought in prior years to the Oilers. I don't think that is going to be the same Corey Perry. You know what I mean? That revived Corey Perry. I think now he's going to hit his ride the train to the end.
Yeah. So wanted to bring that up. I think the Kings now are going to be, I'm just barely leaning into the yes category, by the way. I think they can finally get over that first round hump and beat inevitably the Oilers.
They have a good chance to beat the Oilers now because I don't really see the Oilers as having gotten better. Oilers did not address their goaltending, which was bewildering. I thought John Gibson for sure, which now I have heard that Carter Hart is in discussion as possibly them having their sights set on him which is
crazy.
Yeah, the trial ends. I believe that the judge makes a decision on July 24th, but it feels absolutely insane to be
that's even happening, that the discussions are going on.
Right. For him to be dismissed of all charges, and also for him to be able to come back after 2 years of not playing competitive NHL hockey and perform better.
Think it's everything's fine. Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be looming over him, whatever the outcome is. If he is able to come back, it'll loom over him. I just don't see him being the same player he was before.
At this point, I think Georgie is the best goaltender left, isn't he?
I think you have Samsonov still out there, so I would probably say Samsonov and then Georgiev.
I've got some faith in him. I think he is Stuart Skinner 2.0. So I don't know if they want to keep both of them.
Yep.
And they're still paying Jack Campbell $5 million for 2 more years.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, Britt, who was the other team that you wanted to bring up before we wrap it up?
Mine was I just had to bring up the Islanders. I feel like the Islanders, I've spent so much time not paying any attention to them, and I've made it almost a personality trait of mine to not care about the Islanders. And then they went and stole two of the biggest pieces of my heart in Drouin. And they also drafted Matthew Schaefer, my guy that I told you. They had a phenomenal draft. And then they stole the love of my life it makes me wonder now, not getting Ellers, if we would have regrets not keeping Drouin. I really am curious to hear if anything will come out as to why. I don't think that we should have, could have, or would have paid Drouin $4 million, but it feels like, would he have stayed for $3 million? I think he only signed a 1 year. Is that right? I'm curious to see
2 year.
How is Drouin going to play under Patrick Waugh? You cannot tell me he's a coach that, but I might
different.
have to start I have to force myself to find a way to like the Islanders, because I love Matthew Schaefer, and I will
don't say that. Don't say that too loud. Allie's just over on the other room.
It's always for the story. I've got my stories, but
there you go. There you go. But no, you're exactly right. I mean, it's going to be a different team now that they got Schaefer. Victor Eklund fell to them too, which when they got him, Aitchison was another one that they went and got. So it's going to be a different looking team for sure. Dobson's out. He went to the Canadians in a trade.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to be a team to monitor, but you're exactly right. For Jonathan Drouin, I'm curious to see how the dynamic between him and Patrick Roy is going to go, because it's not the Avalanche anymore. The Avalanche kind of revived his career, so to speak, and he's earned the right to go elsewhere. But
we embraced him with a very empathetic fan base and a very understanding staff and head office. They kind of understood. And his best friend was there to set the tone. So you just got to wonder.
I do have that thought in the back of my head that it's we brought in your career, but he was free to choose where he wanted.
Who knows? Maybe they didn't even offer him a contract at all.
And that's exactly it. And with $4 million, I could see how the Avalanche saw that offer and said, "Sorry, we just can't match it. Best of luck on the island." Yeah. That's probably just how it went.
It crushed me, though. It really, really crushed me. I wish that he could have at least waited, but you can't blame. That's a lot of money. I'm honestly shocked. I gotta wonder
that's why I replied when you texted when we were texting each other about the Drouin information. I was like, I'll send you a box of chocolates to your doorstep or whatever I said, because I was like, you're probably not doing okay.
I just thought for sure with the Coyle and Wood being gone and O'Connor being
I was almost certain a Drouin signing was going to happen, and I was telling you that too. I could have bet a lot of money on it, but that's just not how it works.
A little bit of that ruthless, though. I mean, we're definitely not as loyal as it feels like some teams are, to a point of ruin. So I don't know.
So, with that being said, Brit, the big free agents that are left are Jack Roslovic, Matt Grzelcyk, Jeff Skinner.
I love Jeff Skinner. I like the idea of it.
That'd be pretty fun.
It certainly didn't go well with the Oilers. I don't think he did shit, but I always feel like revivals happen different in different places, and I think the Oilers probably wanted more out of him than he had. So I don't know.
That's true. And Victor Olofsson of the Vegas Golden Knights, formerly of the Vegas Golden Knights, rounds out really the real big ones that are left.
Which, I mean, to me, that's generally the middle bottom of a normal free agent. I mean, when you consider guys like Gabe Landeskog and stuff going unsigned in free agency years past, there's no one left. No one held out, man.
And a lot of it just happened before even the trade deadline started. Like, Florida buttoned up everyone.
They weren't going to
before the free agency even started. Like, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
So will the Avalanche go after some of those that we just named? They still have 4 million.
I feel like they're gonna pull something out of their ass we're gonna have. I mean, my jaw literally dropped over.
That we're going to talk about next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's the state we're in. Is we're only getting. Didn't even know that guy was for sale, kind of stuff.
There you go. Okay. Well, that's going to take us all the way to the end of this Independence Day themed episode, whatever you want to call it. Britt, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. Good deal. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of the Cluster Puck Podcast. Again, if you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can do so on the various social media platforms of your choosing. And if you want to follow us, we ask that you do so at the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook and at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. With that being said, happy 4th of July for those who celebrate. Happy Canada Day that was just recently for our Canadian fan base. Have a great extended weekend. Enjoy yourselves. And as always, go Avs go.
Fast lane when I pass in the street. Bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.